Well, hi there. And in today's live stream, we are doing franchises battle. So, what have you been doing? What have you been watching this week? First, Luke?
Before we get into it,
Yeah.
I've watched a couple of movies and some shows. So I've been watching Palm Royale on.
How's that going?
That's been pretty good on Apple TV. I think I've got one episode left, and it's quite interesting.
Okay.
I finished Fallout, which I really enjoyed. And then in terms of movies, I finally got to see Challenges, which I was a bit on the fence about seeing, as I'm not the biggest fan of Zendaya. But I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I don't know if it's in the top 5 films so far of the year, but I don't know how high I want to go. I guess I need to give it a few more weeks and see if I'd be willing to rewatch it. But it's a movie that isn't about like a whole lot, but it was kind of gripping, and I kind of want to rewatch it. Like, it went for 2 and a bit hours, but throughout the whole film, I was gripped and wanted to know what happens next. And it wasn't like super suspenseful. It was just, I don't know, it just kept you engaged. I thought it was quite good. And I do like a sports movie, so that was quite what made it good. I watched last night Turtles All the Way Down, which is
Is it about turtles?
No, it's not about turtles. It's kind of about mental health and finding your place in the world, but it does have a weird premise in it. We've got the main female lead. Her father died at a young age, and now she's a germaphobe. So all she thinks about is that, she's going to get germs on her, and she's going to die, and she's going to get infections. And because of that, she doesn't let anyone close to her. Her mother is kind of overbearing and protective of her because of that. A billionaire in her area goes missing, and they're offering $100,000 reward to anyone that can help find him, because he's ran away because he's wanted for, I don't know, like fraud or tax evasion or something. And she knows the son of this billionaire, so then she goes over to his house, and they kindle their relationship, and they kind of like start to fall in love, but she can't get close to him because she's a germaphobe. And then, I don't know, the whole missing person is a really random part of the storyline. It's just an odd thing that this like billionaire would go missing. So then like the boyfriend takes her on his private jet to fly to another place to go visit something. And I don't know, it seems like a weird side story to add into it, but in the end of the day, it was about trying to find your place in the world, being a germaphobe, and then trying to imagine, like, what is life going to be like? Can I actually live this way? Being, to the point of being in hospital because of a car crash, and she's so afraid she's going to get germs, that she starts swallowing soap and like hand sanitizer because she's so afraid of germs, even though she's in a hospital. So I guess the mental health aspect of it's quite gripping, but the storyline that goes along with it is a bit like kind of stupid and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So it was a pretty average movie. All in all, the name Turtles All the Way comes down from this idea that she goes to see this university lecturer that she likes her work, and she says, "Oh, I don't know if I'm real. I don't know if I'm part of the world. Am I a simulation? Is any of this real?" And she starts talking about, "Oh, well, there's this theory that, where the world is just actually, we live on the back of a turtle floating in infinite space."
Okay.
And then she goes, "Oh, well, then what's the turtle rest on top of?" And she goes, "Well, maybe it's just turtles all the way down. That it's a turtle resting on top of a turtle, on top of a bigger turtle." I don't know. It's philosophical. It's pretty average. The Challenges was actually really good, and I actually think it was worth watching. It was different, gripping. It's not your average sports movie because it's not really about the sports. It's about friends fighting for the love of one person, and them all really being bad people, them all sabotaging each other, cheating on each other. It's like, it's very scandalous. So what have you been watching?
I've been watching, finished off Sugar, what is also an Apple, and at the start it's a noir murder mystery, and then it turns into something different. You're either going to love it or hate it. There's no in between. So I definitely would recommend watching Sugar because it's a very unique and different show, but it's something that starts off pretty small and then ends up being something that you go, oh, this is pretty different. So Sugar, and also started Dark Matter. Haven't seen the latest episode that came out this week, or is episode 4, but really enjoying the concept. I definitely think that's worth watching. And also started watching Franklin with Michael Douglas, what is obviously about Benjamin Franklin, him going to France and trying to get them to help with America to defeat England. So the only problem with that show is that it's half in English and half in France. So and the subtitles is very quick as well. So trying to understand like what the French is saying. So if that's not your thing, trying to read subtitles, I probably wouldn't recommend watching Franklin. But yeah, and also watched a movie last night. What was okay, but yeah.
What was the movie?
It had Guy Pearce and Pierce Brown in it, and I actually forgot I already seen it from the library.
Oh, okay, so it's not a new movie?
No, it came out in 2018.
Okay, so we're going to battle franchises off. So we've gone through, basically, I asked you for a few, I put a few that I like, and then I went through and looked up greatest movie franchises of all time. It's always hard to try and split franchises. Do we bundle all the DC together? Do we bundle the MCU? It's hard. So I've gone the best way that I thought would work. Got about 28 on the list. The list could have kept going, but ultimately the ones that are likely to win are already on the list. So my thought is I'm going to work down I'm going to pick random 2 out the list, and then we will vote on which one we want to keep until eventually there's only one left. Okay, so Iron Man versus Rocky.
Iron Man versus Rocky. Well, that's a hard one. I'm going to have to go Iron Man.
Iron Man. Oh, I like them both, but I feel like Rocky's probably slightly a bit outdated now.
Yeah.
If you look back at them, they're probably not that good of films. They're just iconic for some of the moments. I actually like the Creed franchise better than Rocky.
Yeah, if you put Creed, I probably would have said Creed over Iron Man, but
yeah. So okay, we're in consensus. We're both kicking off Rocky.
Yeah,
Rocky's gone. Okay, so what about we've got Deadpool versus Twilight?
Oh, Deadpool. I only watched the first Twilight because my mum promised that it was going to be action, and it wasn't. So I didn't like Twilight.
Yeah, I do like the Twilight franchise, but I have no interest in revisiting them.
Yeah.
I think Deadpool's entertaining. I don't think the story's amazing in Deadpool, but it's entertaining, and I'm more likely to go back to watch that. Given that Twilight's not a classic in my opinion, I can't just give it credit and go, even though you don't want to rewatch it, it's one of those masterpieces, because I don't think it is. So I agree with you. Let's kick out Twilight. Hunger Games versus Planet of the Apes.
Ooh. I'm going to go Planet of the Apes.
I'm definitely a big fan of Hunger Games. So
yes.
I'm leaning towards Hunger Games. To settle this, why don't we do the same? No, I won't do scissors, paper, rock, because there can be bias in that. How about I find an app where we can flip a coin or something.
Okay.
Let's go randomizer. Okay, so we're going to put Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Apes. And then we've got Hunger Games. Apes versus Hunger. We've got the 2 on there. I'm going to randomize it. At the one at the top of the list wins, so Hunger Games wins.
Okay.
I click out Planet of the Apes. I'll do like Planet of the Apes. It's a franchise that's obviously stretched over a long time, and it's kind of been rebooted if you really think about it. So, where the Hunger Games, I think it's I just enjoy it. The Mummy versus Fast and the Furious.
The Mummy for sure.
I agree with you on that, only because I think the Fast and the Furious franchise, even though it is by far more popular, I think it's silly. Where the Mummy franchise, I just remember that being part of my childhood, watching that, Brendan Fraser being like the hottest property in Hollywood at the time. So I agree. I'm going to go with the Mummy as well. Pirates of the Caribbean versus the Godfather trilogy.
I know this might be a hot take because I know the Godfather is very beloved, but I'm going to go the Pirates of the Caribbean.
I'm going to do the same. I don't understand the hype about the Godfather trilogy. I actually find it really boring, and I don't understand why people absolutely love this film. So Pirates of the Caribbean have its issues, but it's pretty entertaining the whole way through. So Pirates of the Caribbean survives. Avengers versus the Transformers.
The Avengers for sure.
I agree with that, only because I'm not the biggest Transformers fan. I'm coming around to it a lot more, but yeah, I think the Avengers have a lot more there for me. Captain America versus Batman: The Dark Knight trilogy.
I'm going to go The Dark Knight.
It's no-brainer for me. I'm a big fan of The Dark Knight. I think the Captain America, really, like the first Captain America was a good film, but
it was a timepiece.
So it really is like the rest of it, like they're not even really his own standalone films after that. Like Civil War is, a team-up movie, and The Winter Soldier, yeah, that's his own, but focus on Bucky quite a bit. So John Wick versus Indiana Jones.
Oh.
My thoughts are I haven't seen all the Indiana Joneses, but from what I've seen, I don't dislike it, but I don't understand the cult following behind it. I like it just seems okay to me. And I have not seen John Wick at all. So I'm going to go John Wick because even though I haven't seen it, I hear people speak a lot more positively about that, where I've seen Indiana Jones firsthand and I don't believe the hype. So I'm going to go John Wick based upon other people's opinion of John Wick. What do you think?
My heart is saying Indiana Jones because I grew up with that franchise, but my brain is telling me John Wick because I think the 4 movies of the franchise have been a lot more consistent. So I'm going to go with my brain and say John Wick.
John Wick. Okay. Spider-Man, Tom Holland versus Harry Potter.
Because we are getting Spider-Man 4 at some point. What with the Harry Potter movies, there are 7 Harry Potters, but No Way Home, I think, is a better movie than any of the Harry Potter movies. I'm going to have to go Spider-Man, Tom Holland.
I'm going to go Harry Potter. I think Harry Potter's, an absolutely beloved franchise. It's been watched in all corners of the earth and liked by people all over, and it's absolutely adored. So I can't possibly say that I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man is better than, Lord of the Rings, which is, Harry Potter, which I think is, in the top 3 biggest franchises of all time. Okay, so let's randomize it.
I think No Way Home is more iconic with the Spider-Man, all the Spider-Mans together.
Yeah, well, it's like you could say is one scene in the Avengers more iconic than all of Harry Potter. Like, I think the cast of Harry Potter are some of the most recognizable faces in the whole entire world. You know, like if you asked, I reckon a lot of people that aren't DC MCU fans, if you asked them who Tom Holland is or who plays Spider-Man, they'd be like, I don't know his name, but you know, Daniel Radcliffe. People know who Daniel Radcliffe is.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it didn't change. That means Harry Potter stayed at the top.
Okay.
Okay. Star Wars versus Spider-Man Tobey Maguire.
Has to be Star Wars.
Star Wars is definitely bigger. There's a lot more to it. I think Tobey Maguire, I think the third film really hurt that franchise. So it's hard to go past a juggernaut like Star Wars. It's very similar to Harry Potter. It's just so big. It's hard to say that, you know, a franchise of 3 movies could knock it out. We've got Lord of the Rings versus Mission Impossible.
Oh, that's a hard one. Has to be Lord of the Rings.
I'll agree. I'll vote Lord of the Rings. I'm not a massive fan of it, but I appreciate that it's a good story. So, Toy Story versus Ghostbusters.
The first 2 were amazing, but I have to go Toy Story.
I agree. I think Toy Story is such an awesome franchise. It's hard to go past.
And I think they're milking the Ghostbuster franchise, unfortunately. I think the first reboot was great. It's kind of like what Star Wars have done. The Force Awakens was great. And then The Last Jedi was terrible, what the Frozen Empire was with Ghostbusters. And I guess they might make a third Ghostbusters movie of the new trilogy. We'll see.
Okay, we've got Jurassic Park versus Back to the Future.
I have to go Back to the Future.
I've only seen one of the Back to the Futures, and I do very much like Jurassic Park, so I'm going to go Jurassic Park.
Okay.
Okay, we got Jurassic Park and Back to the Future. Randomize it, and the one at the top wins. Pressing it now. Back to the Future.
Interesting.
Okay. James Bond or Daniel Craig James Bond, because it'd be too unfair to use all the James Bonds, versus Thor.
I'm going to have to go James Bond.
I agree. I'm a massive fan of the James Bond franchise with Daniel Craig. I like the fact that we didn't get a perfect ending. I actually think that that's really nice to see a film where the lead character is possibly dead.
If we weren't counting Love and Thunder, well, I know it's part of the franchise, Thor Ragnarok for me is a classical movie, but unfortunately 4 movies are the part of the franchise. So for me, you can't choose Thor over the James Bond movies.
Well, I think Thor Ragnarok was funny. The story was good too, but yeah, it was entertaining and funny. But I think the first 2 Thors, I didn't think much of them. Like I wouldn't go back and rewatch them. But I enjoyed Ragnarok because of the comedy. But then Love and Thunder, they kind of redid the
parody.
Well, they kind of redid the formula or parodied a bit, and then it was like, well, this isn't funny now. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I would rewatch Thor Ragnarok and think the same now, or I'd think, oh, this is a bit silly. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 films left. Okay. John Wick versus Back to the Future.
I'm going to have to go Back to the Future.
I will agree because I have not seen any of the John Wicks, and I've seen bits and pieces of Back to the Future. We've got Deadpool versus Toy Story.
Deadpool versus Toy Story. Deadpool.
I'm gonna go Toy Story.
Okay.
Same reason before. I think Deadpool is slapstick comedy that, you know, like the story itself is not good at all. It's funny. So let's clear the list. Let's go. Where I actually think Toy Story has built this insane world that's like immersive, and this idea that toys are alive and you can buy the same toys that are in the show. And like, I don't know, I just think it's really clever. It appeals to not only kids but adults. Deadpool. Randomize it. Deadpool.
Okay.
Interestingly, that when you look up like the biggest franchises, like Deadpool's like not even on like the top 100.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's like critically loved or acclaimed Deadpool, or it's just like, I don't know, it's just caught people's attention lately because of the R-ratedness of it. I don't know. Pirates of the Caribbean versus Iron Man.
Iron Man.
I'll agree. I'm kind of impartial on both of them. I think I like them just equally the same. So
the first Iron Man, I think, is the best movie out of any Pirates of the Caribbean, and unfortunately, Iron Man 2 and 3 aren't as good, but Iron Man 1 is like in the top 5 any MCU movies.
It is. It does set up the world very, very well. So I agree. Hunger Games versus The Mummy.
Even though I do like The Mummy, I think The Hunger Games is just. I think the prequel Hunger Games movie is better than. Even though I loved the first Mummy and that was a cult classic for me growing up, the prequel Hunger Games, in my opinion, is one of the best movies that came out last year. So I have to go The Hunger Games.
Yeah, I think The Hunger Games have a lot more to offer. We got Lord of the Rings versus James Bond, Daniel Craig.
I'm going to have to go Lord of the Rings.
I'm going to go James Bond. I really, really think the James Bond franchise is fantastic. And I said before, I love the ending. I actually think that it's nice to get this like ending that, you know, he's possibly dead and like he may not be coming back.
Or we're getting a new James Bond actor.
Lord of the Rings
and
James Bond. Okay. Stayed the same. Lord of the Rings.
As the audience, what do you guys think the stage of the franchises should be? Are we making the right decisions?
What's left on this list? We've got Avengers versus Star Wars.
Oh, that's a hard one. I think I have to go Star Wars.
I'm going to agree with you.
Even though I love the Avengers movies, I just think Star Wars is in one of my favorite franchises of all time.
Well, the dilemma now is we have an uneven number. So that leaves Harry Potter goes straight through, but we need to add another one to the list to even it out. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got 7 left. Is there any on that list that we should bring back, or anything you think we've missed?
Anything we've missed? There's the Terminator franchise. There's the it's quite a lot of things.
Let's go Terminator.
Have you seen them?
Oh, I've seen some of them. We'll give it a free pass into the next round.
I'll be back.
Okay. Iron Man versus the Terminator.
I'm gonna have to go to the Terminator franchise.
I can go Iron Man.
Okay.
I don't know, the Terminator franchise doesn't interest me a whole lot.
The first one and second one were great films, and then they kind of went not that good after that. The second one's one of the best action movies of all time.
I am a big Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, though.
Have you seen the second one?
Yeah. Iron Man, Terminator. Okay. Deadpool versus Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
I agree. Back to the Future versus Star Wars.
Star Wars.
I also agree. Hunger Games versus Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
I am going to go after the Hunger Games.
Okay.
Big fan of Hunger Games. Lord of the Rings is okay. Classic. I appreciate the visuals of it. It is just so long that I'd never ever want to watch it again.
Or read the book.
No, I've read The Hobbit, but I have not seen the Hobbit movies. I think reading the book was enough to go, I don't need to watch this.
Yeah, you don't.
Lord of the Rings, Hunger Games. No change. Lord of the Rings. Okay.
Top 4.
Yeah, the final 4. We got Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars.
Star Wars.
I agree. I'm going to go Star Wars. Harry Potter versus the Terminator.
Harry Potter.
I agree. I've only seen the Terminator a couple of times, like once or twice. I reckon I'll rewatch Harry Potter annually. You know, they've got theme parks dedicated to Harry Potter. Like this thing is, you know, the amount of cars you see with Harry Potter stickers and people with Harry Potter tattoos, it like infiltrates the world. So we're left with, I think, in my opinion, the 2 biggest franchises of all time, Star Wars and Harry Potter. Harry Potter kind of started to build its own world and kind of brought it back. Star Wars is just infinitely expanding and just adding more and more to it, even to the point of now having kids shows. And I think it's doing a really good job. What do you like about Star Wars?
Its characters, its world building, it's developing the sequels that kind of made the original films not as good, but that's still kind of what's happened. But overall, the imagination of this galaxy that's kind of happened. And for me, when I think of a franchise that I want to watch, it's normally Star Wars or the MCU and Lord of the Rings. But Star Wars is my number 1 favorite franchise of all time.
Star Wars is an interesting one because it spreads over such a long time, and it's, you know, it's part of different generations' childhoods. It keeps going. The only thing that deters me about Star Wars is not Star Wars itself, it's the fans. I think the fans, their pickiness and the hatred they have for different parts really does my head in, why people can't just appreciate things as they are. You know, like I can see how Young Jedi appeals to my son, but yeah, the Star Wars franchise appeals to me. But then I also accept there's things about Star Wars that don't appeal to me, but it's fine. You don't need to know everything. What is something you dislike about Star Wars? What's an argument against it?
Argument against is that it's done too much on the Skywalker family. It hasn't done enough of expanding the franchise forward. I think that's the main thing, and how people argue too much about things, but that's life, unfortunately.
I just find it very it's quite complex. It's not as complex as Dune because it at least makes sense. But you do need to, be fully across it, like all the different terms and remembering the order and where things happen and who's related to what. Like it's there's a lot to it now. Like you've got to be across it. So that probably deters me the most. That as the world gets bigger, you kind of need to know all of it. You can't just jump in and start watching, one episode, like episode 4, and be like, oh, it's all good. I know what's happening. Like you can't, like you really have to see the whole thing, which is a good and a bad thing. So that's probably the thing that deters me the most. What about Harry Potter? What do you like about Harry Potter?
Its charm, its kid-friendly nature, its story about that even though Harry Potter's lost so much that eventually he gets things and finds that he does have somewhere to belong, that belongingness and that charm of Hogwarts, such iconic characters as well, Dumbledore, Harry Potter, all the iconic Snape, everything like that. But I just think there's more to Star Wars that's better.
Yeah, I like the Harry Potter world, and I'm definitely more interested in rewatching Harry Potter. But really, the story is a bit, like how many, like I don't know how much of it's believable. This whole, I don't know. There's just a bit to it that's like, oh, where Star Wars is funny too. I'm really on the fence with this one. If I flash forward to 100 years in the future, which franchise is people still going to watch, and which one is more likely to get bigger and continue on? I really do think it's Star Wars. I think Harry Potter's kind of done. They try to add on with the Fantastic Beast franchise, and then that flopped.
It did, yeah.
J.K. Rowling is, universally hated now for being, a sexist, a transphobic, she's probably a racist too. So, there's a lot of hatred towards her, where, George Lucas is pretty well loved from Star Wars, and it's trying its best to appeal to new people. Opinion of Harry Potter might change when the show comes out, but I think Harry Potter's kind of on the decline, where I think Star Wars' stocks are rising again. I think it's getting bigger and bigger. So I'm going to go with Star Wars.
Star Wars for me.
So we've got a winner. Star Wars is the undisputed champion of movie franchises. You got a favorite Star Wars movie, property, show? What's your favorite thing about Star Wars?
My favorite show would have to be live action Star Wars Andor, but animation has to be the Clone Wars.
Okay, I actually, controversially, one of my favorite thing in the Star Wars franchise or Star Wars universe was the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Oh, okay.
I actually really enjoyed that. I know people had issues with it, but I liked it. I thought it was really fun, and I got gripped into that. Some of the other things I'm not too phased on, but like I haven't explored watching the Clone Wars. I haven't seen all of Ahsoka. I don't think I finished Endor, but I did like it.
Yeah.
But I actually think my favorite film is Rogue One, which is interesting being a spin-off film. Like I just think that was one of my favorite things about Star Wars. I think with Star Wars 2, even though as it gets, the originals get outdated and they look worse with the CGI. It wasn't even CGI, but how they did it. I don't think it matters. I think people kind of look at that and go, "Oh, it's funny," because it's like it's silly how they did it. But Star Wars I think is going to live on for a long time and expanding. And I'm actually very, very impressed with the Young Jedi show and how it's capturing a new audience. So Star Wars, I can undisputed champ.
You're looking forward to the Star Wars Acolyte show?
I don't know what that is.
It's set before the Phantom Menace, and it's going to explore the dark side of the Force.
Live action or?
Yes, coming out in June.
Okay, interesting. Well, I guess I'm looking forward to it now. But I think Star Wars is definitely on the rise. It's creating more and more stuff.
Mm. So I guess we'll talk about something. What is been your favorite movie or show for the year so far?
Favorite shows Fallout
Mhm.
easily. It may even be one of my favorite shows I've ever seen.
Okay.
Like I really like the concept, and I think it's because it was something I didn't expect to like, and then maybe the excitement of knowing that there's games out there if I want to. I can
Mm.
explore this world further. I can play this world if I want. So yeah, I really gripped by Fallout. I'm very impressed by Palm Royale too.
Mm.
Like it's not, you know, amazing, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it was better though.
Mm.
So I've enjoyed Palm Royale, movies. I constantly fiddle with my list. I'm at about 48
It's not
movies
Dune,
now.
is it?
No, Dune is
Oh,
Dune
that's
is the
unfortunate.
most disappointing movie of the year. It's not the worst movie of the year.
Mm.
It is the most disappointing movie of the year, which people argue and say, well, it wasn't disappointing, it was amazing.
Mm.
And to that I say, well, I'm glad you like special effects. That's awesome. I'm glad that you get excitement out of a movie with zero storyline or a storyline that makes no sense and special effects, because I'm not fooled by that. So Dune was by far the most disappointing film of the year, or the most overrated film of the year by the largest margin possible. But yeah, movies. Most of the movies I was looking forward to this year have already came out, and most of them met expectations or exceeded it, except for maybe the Mean Girls movie. That probably was underwhelming in comparison to what I was hoping it would be. But The Fall Guy lived up to the expectations. It was great. Again, it proved that Ryan Gosling's, one of my favorite actors in Hollywood because of his versatility. I really enjoyed Challenges. That's a movie that surprised me that I didn't think I would. And I really looked forward to seeing Iron Claw, which came out earlier in the year. And that at the moment is still my favorite movie of the year. Every time I think about it, I'm like, that was just, it was long, but I was gripped. I was captivated. I felt something, and it was a movie that had me thinking after I left the cinemas. So it itself deserves a lot of awards because, sometimes movies, people just love them because of the experience. They go, oh, well, it was fun. I laughed, or whatever it be. And I appreciate it. I think that's great. But then sometimes a movie captures, like, something comes out of it. You're sitting there and you think about a scene or something that happened. You go, oh, wow. And that to me, like, I think Oppenheimer had a lot of scenes like that. If you compare that to Barbie, the two movies last year that were probably the hottest properties, Barbie had a lot of scenes where you go, geez, that's funny. I'd rewatch that. But then you think about Oppenheimer and you go, okay, well, that was epic.
Yeah.
And so they both have merit. And I think Iron Claw was full of, moments of, you're like, wow, this is real life. This is a story worth knowing. Where other films are like, this is an escape from reality. It's fun. Where Fall Guy was fun. Iron Claw was, captivating. So I don't know which film I'm going to finish with as my favorite for the year, and there's still obviously more films to come out. But
yeah,
I get torn between which film was the most entertaining and which one is the most memorable. What about yourself? What's the best? What film has gripped you the most this year?
For me, it has to be Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, because I haven't seen Iron Claw yet. I haven't seen The Fall Guy yet. So for me, I feel the same with Dune 2, because for me the action was better than the first movie, but the story to me was not as interesting as I think the movie wanted you to think it was. So I really enjoyed the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I personally think it's my favorite movie, but I think the Joker has the potential to take the spot. I really want to see Iron Claw. I think that if I do see that, I think that has the potential to make the top 5. I think Iron Claw, because it's based off a true story, would get to your heartstrings. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. When it comes to TV shows, even though I haven't finished it yet, I think Fallout is the best TV show. It has the best production, best choreography. For someone like, I haven't played Fallout, but if I wasn't a gamer, I think it's a show that's nailed a show that's a video game that has become a show perfectly. Like, it's a storyline that if you don't play video games, you can understand the show perfectly. It's basically a person that has lost a loved one, needs to find the lover, gets caught up in the world because she's naive, and then there's other factions and other things going on, and it's, in my opinion, it's the best show of the year. So that's Fallout and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I do want to watch Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I'm hoping that to see it soon. But yeah, we talk about this a lot, that I am a big fan of movies or shows that do something a little bit different. And I think Fallout was that for a show. I know it's based upon something that already exists, but it's just a little bit different. It's quirky, it's fun, it's gory. We've got a lot of zombie or apocalyptic style shows out there, but this is just like a bit different. They all tend to be serious, where I don't think this is serious, but it also does have high stakes because you want to know what happens. In terms of movies, I know I talked about it a bit today, but I keep thinking back to Challenges and how it gripped me, because I really didn't expect much about this film. It had an actress like Zendaya, who I don't care at all about. Like, I don't understand what the hype is about her, and it's about tennis, a sport that I don't really like whatsoever. But the movie gripped me because it was just different. Like, there's usually a sport movie's about underdog winning, or someone coming from nothing to being at the top, or someone falling from the top all the way to the bottom of the sporting world. There's always something like that. But this film uniquely follows like two best friends that have been best friends since the age of 12 from boarding school. They're tennis doubles partners. They win the junior US Open, and then they both are obsessed with this female star who's going to be the greatest tennis player of all time. They're obsessed with her, and they both are like, well, we're going to have to compete for her love. Okay. She basically says, well, I like you both. Whoever wins, you two are playing tomorrow in this tournament. Whoever wins can have my number. Like, I'll date the winner. So then they play their event. You don't see who wins that, but then it fast forwards to one of them's dating her. So then they make reference to him winning. Then they fast forward a bit more, and it cuts back and forward. It does a really good job of going between the timelines, which I like, because a lot of films don't do that. The timeline swapping well to, she's now married to the other guy and has a kid, the one that lost. And then the guy that she was originally dating, his best friend, they're not talking to each other. His career's gone nowhere, and the other guy's at the end of his career, about to complete his career Grand Slam, and their paths cross again in a tournament. And it shows throughout the movie their match, but then it keeps going back in time to things that are relevant. Like they like the tension's building up, and then it goes to show like why. So you're unpacking so you see them being best friends to being enemies, and then through the movie it unpacks how they became enemies. And ultimately it just has a really satisfying ending in a weird way, because it's all building up to him. He wants to go to the US Open. He's decided to go to a tournament leading up to it to try and get his confidence back. And then the movie ends and you don't even see him go to the US Open, and whether he wins it or not. But that's fine. Like, it's satisfying, because you're like, I don't care, because the movie's not about the sport. It's about, one friend trying to steal another friend's girlfriend, the girlfriend trying to make them compete against each other. She's sleazy, he's sleazy. It's like it's about the relationship. The sport is actually just a side story to it. I also liked what made it different was the camera angles. We saw a lot of shots where you're the tennis ball getting hit between them, and like the way they did the action shots, it was different than any other film. And it had like a really killer, like I wouldn't say soundtrack, it's a score because it was like music without sound, without like words, and I think it was an original score, but it just had this like the score was perfect every time it had the right moment. It had this like really upbeat like sound. I was like, oh yeah, the game's intensifying, and it was just different. It was literally a film I didn't expect to like about something I don't like, tennis, but it gripped me. So I like it when someone does something different. It reminds me of another film this year that gripped me, which was Totally Killer on Amazon Prime, which we've talked about. That was a time travel movie, but it just had a twist on it and it was different. And I love it when people do something different. Actually, a topic that I want to talk to you about and ask your opinion. So, and we talk about this a lot, about original products, or do people just keep rebooting things and making sequels and prequels, and like which is better? Like where do you sit on the fence? Do you want new products, or are you happy with them just rebooting and making sequels and making spin-offs?
I wouldn't mind new fresh properties out there, because it always feels like we're getting a new, I know a James Bond movie hasn't came out in a while, but James Bond, they're Johnny Depp is coming back to play Jack Sparrow, so we're going to be getting, he's coming back as Jack Sparrow. So we haven't really got a new franchise that's iconic. We keep getting, Ghostbusters is a good example. They keep rebooting that, so I wouldn't mind a new trilogy or franchise.
Yeah, I just want to see more original products. But the problem is, and I heard another podcast talk about this, is the box office numbers show that reboots and refranchising and redoing and whatever sequels, that's what's killing it at the box office. Like the films that are making the most money are those where original products, new things, people don't want to go see. They're like, the movies are too expensive, and I'm only going to go see one movie this year, and I'm not going to risk it on this movie I've never heard of. So people are waiting and saving their money to see a product they've heard of. I like Ghostbusters, so I'll go pay to see Ghostbusters. Or I'm a big fan of Mad Max, so the one movie I'll go see this year, I'll go see Furiosa. People aren't willing to go, well, I'll go see this movie I've never heard of that's brand new. And so they're just dying off. So, obviously movies are about making money. So the studios are probably going, someone comes in with an original idea and they go, do we take a risk on this, or do we make Fast and the Furious 25? Do we just keep going? Like, seriously, and that's sadly what's happening because it's about money. So we as the consumer are missing out on new products because we're not using our feet to talk and going to the movies and putting eyeballs on screens, paying money. So we're just getting the same crap again because we're voting in that way, and that's a bit sad. But yeah, I just think some of the best things I've seen this year are things that were different.
Yeah.
Like, I think Argyle was a bit of a disappointment of a film, but it was different. I just like seeing something different. Like, that's fine, but the studio will look at that and go, oh, it was a massive flop. It lost money. Let's not attempt that again. I wish I kept the list that on this podcast I was listening to, they were talking about last year they released the movies that were the biggest success at the box office, so made the most profit, like return for investment, and the ones that were the biggest failure. So from memory, the 5 worst. So this is, for instance, if I guess they'd be the films that lost the most money. So some of the films that were on this list in the bottom 5 have lost the most money. Haunted Mansion was on there.
Okay.
So they spent a lot of money marketing this movie, and basically no one went and saw it at the cinemas. I think out of the bottom 5, Disney had 4 out of 5 of them.
Wow.
Indiana Jones was a massive loss. It lost like over $100 million.
Wow.
Not many people went to see it. It cost a lot to make. Wish, another Disney animated film, lost a lot of money. Yeah. And surprisingly, you want to have a guess what were some of the movies that made the most money?
I would assume the MCU movies that came out last year, Mission Impossible.
They weren't on the list. A movie that was on the bottom, I just remember, was The Marvels. That lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's funny. The movies that make the most money are generally the ones that cost the least to make and then turn over a big profit. And surprisingly, it shows that nearly every year horror films turn over the biggest profit because they're very cheap to make.
Okay.
So, like, do you want to know what the most profitable movie is? So, like, for instance, if a movie cost $50 million to make and it makes $100 million, it only doubled its investment. But if a movie cost $1 to make, but then it made $1 million at the box office, it then made 1 million times its amount. So that's considered a more bigger success. You know what the most profitable like film is of all time based upon those analytics?
Scream?
No, it's actually Paranormal Activities.
Okay.
Apparently, they made Paranormal Activities for $15,000.
Okay.
And it made like a couple of $100 million at the box office.
Okay.
Because it's like the film is literally like it's like a security camera watching like a Ouija board moving and stuff. Like, it was cheap as to make. So horror movies make heaps. So one of the most profitable movies last year was Dead Rising, because again horror films usually get kind of like B-list actors or up and coming actors, and it's just like it's not special effects. It's like VFX. It's like blood splatters and stuff. It's just way cheaper to make. Well, you make an Avengers film, you got to spend, I know, $500 million paying people to sit on computers to add, whether Thanos looks right, and so they're so much cheaper to make. So like, I think studios were probably pushing towards horror films because they just make money and they're cheap to make. But yeah, the most profitable film last year, I just remember what it was. It was Anyone But You.
Okay.
Yeah, so rom-com. So comedies and horror films are very cheap to make. They don't get as many people to go see them, but the amount of money they make compared to the amount it costs to make them, they make a fortune.
That makes sense.
So where I was going with this, I was thinking about Anyone But You. I really like that film, but I heard that they're thinking about making a sequel to it. I don't really know how. Like, the premise can't really be redone, but it's like, why does everything need a sequel?
Yeah. I
feel like soon as a good movie comes out, people go, when are you going to make the next one? Well, does there have to be a next one? Like, I think we talked about it on the last one about some of the worst sequels ever made or ones that were unnecessary. Like, why did they make a second Zoolander? And why can't films just be a one-off? Why do they have to keep going and keep pushing the envelope? Like, some of those franchises we talked about today, like, if they were just a one-off film, would have that been better off? If Rocky 1 was the only part, like they just made Rocky, would it be better? Like, did the others need to exist?
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, like, I want to see original products. I'm sick of seeing sequels and prequels.
That's a fair point.
Anything coming out you're excited to see?
Definitely Deadpool vs. Wolverine. I would say I'm looking forward to the Furiosa movie, but I don't know. I think they're making too many Mad Max movies.
I'm looking forward to seeing it, but I've never seen anything Mad Max.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen any of them, but I want to see it. But then what's kind of annoying me is we hear Chris Hemsworth come out saying that he thinks that, people aren't taking him serious after Thor and became a parody of himself. He looks worse in this film. He looks more of a parody. It looks stupid, and the way he's carrying on. Like, I know that's the character, but I feel like his career is going backwards. Why is he doing these stupid roles?
Yeah.
So I am looking forward to seeing that. That comes out quite soon. I really want to see Inside Out too.
Looks interesting.
I really enjoyed the first one. For me, it's not rewatchable though. I don't want to watch it again. But I remember at the time being like, thinking this was amazing. What a cool premise. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this expands. Obviously,
they'll probably do 3, won't they?
Maybe. I just like the whole premise is this one. She's like
a teenager.
She's a teenager, so new emotions are coming in. So I don't know, where do you go next with it? Like, when she becomes a mother or when she gets a bit older? I don't know. Then it's not a kid movie anymore. So it's like I think if you expanded any further, then it's not a kids movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then I guess if you go into someone else's head, then it's like it's just not the same. I think Riley has to be the main character. So yeah,
I guess you could do like do Riley's children, but she's still like a side character.
yeah. But I guess the cool thing about like Inside Out is you're seeing inside their head at a certain period in time. So like the whole idea of the first movie is they want to show off this idea that, you know, inside our head we've got our different emotions and they're in the brain center and they make things happen. But to give it a bit of storyline, you know, sadness, Joy wants to get rid of sadness and they decide to go look at core memories and things go wrong. Like you can't repeat that again. If you pick another person, if you do that same storyline again, it's like, well, that's stupid. And then if you don't do that, well, what else could happen? Like, because otherwise you just would be showing someone's everyday life and going, oh, this is what's happening in her brain. And I actually don't think they could expand. I think a second film is probably a stretch and it's only going to work because of the fact that new emotions are coming in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really don't think they could make another film.
I have one more question before we finish.
Yeah.
I thought about, because obviously you're prioritizing movies. Why do you find, because movies and TV shows are obviously different. So why do you think movies are better for you compared to TV shows? Is it because of time, or you just prefer watching movies at the moment? Is it a thing that with TV shows you have to like watch because most of them are weekly? What is it about you watching movies that you currently prefer? Because I know for myself, I think I'm always a person that prefers TV shows over movies, because with TV shows, I think TV shows have better stories than movies. Why do you find that you prefer movies?
There's probably a lot to it. Like, I don't know if I prefer movies. I think TV shows have the ability to really go more in depth, expand a storyline, get to understand characters. They really got time to build character development. But I also feel like they can disappoint you a lot. You know, you get 3 seasons in and invested, and then suddenly the show goes to shit. You go, oh, I don't do that. Or your favorite show gets cancelled, or it becomes the end of the road. You know, like every show has to end, and then you just go, the feeling like, have you ever had a show finish on you and like you just feel lost and heartbroken? Like I hate that sense of feeling when a finale happens on a show.
Yeah, sometimes, but I guess you got to find another show.
Yeah, so that's part of it too, where like a movie, you turn it on,
2 hours.
You know what's going to happen, and if they make a sequel, they make one. But I know the same thing can happen with films. You know, you get to the last Harry Potter or the last ever Star Wars, and it's the end. But that also maybe, like, I know this sounds weird, but the ability to focus. So for instance, if I watch a show and let's say the episode's 40 minutes, by the time the episode finishes, I go, I don't have time to invest in another episode. Like like if I turn it on, I know that I'm not going to be focused. I'm kind of tapped out. Where I know a movie's longer, but I'm like, okay, well, I'm halfway through the movie. Just keep going. Where once you restart a new episode, it's like refresh, and I'm like, I won't bother. So it just takes me a longer time. I find that I'm more, even though, let's say, a movie was 2 hours long and an episode of a show was an hour each, I'm more likely to watch a 2 hour long movie than to watch 2 1 hour episodes of a show. Because I think once I've completed one episode, I go, that's enough for today. I'll go do something else and I'll come back. Or a movie, I'm like, I'm going to finish this tonight. I'm not going to turn it off and come watch another half of it tomorrow. So I get through it, and maybe the sense of achievement going, that's done, movie's finished. I watched that whole thing in one night, it's done. Where, like, you know, to watch a whole series in a night takes a bit more effort and sometimes not possible. So maybe it's the sense of achievement. I guess, you know, a movie usually has, you know, a start, middle, and end, opposed to carrying over, having cliffhangers, building towards something. You know, it's like it's just all there on the table. So I don't know. I guess as well, like in Hollywood, it seems like movies are considered the pinnacle too. Like the most popular actors and actresses want to be in movies, and shows are kind of like seen as the, you know, the secondary choice. So I don't know. I'm just big into movies at the moment, and that's what I prefer to watch. But I do think that shows are better quality and more potential though. But
Yeah.
I just find movies easy to watch, maybe because it's I can start this tonight and finish it tonight kind of thing.
So it sounds like to me you prefer the longer format, but finishes what when you watch a TV show, you go, oh, the episode's 40 minutes, but you find it hard to watch the second episode, even if you watch 2 episodes of 40 minutes. That's only 80 minutes, but you would prefer to watch the longer movie because the story's concluded. What with the TV show, it's longer because most TV shows go for 6, 8 hours, 10 hours. What a movie goes for 2 hours in full length, but the one episode is shorter, but you would prefer to watch something that's longer. It's kind of like you prefer to sprint metaphorically. I would prefer to do the slow marathon.
Yeah, I guess as well, shows kind of can have filler in it. You know, they need this thing to drag out for 10 episodes. So they'll go, well, you have some filler episodes. Where movies, yes, they can get the pacing wrong, but the idea is they're trying to fit as much story as they can in the shorter period of time, which you then lose story because of it, but then there theoretically should be no dull spots. It kind of, you know, I don't know. I see the merit in both, and I think TV is a better craft, or something that can be more enjoyable to watch. But I guess there's something magical about a movie and trying to plan. I don't know, the world of movies and how they're made, I think intrigued me as well. And I know there's more coming out. More movies would come out in a year than TV shows. Not episodes, but the new shows. So there's always like, when I find out there's a new movie, like we keep on track of what movies are coming out, and still most days I look online or hear a news story about another new movie. I'm like, oh, so many. I'm like so excited about new movies coming out. Where like if someone gave me a list of all the new shows coming out, I'd like, I can't get through that. I'll never finish those. It's overwhelming. Yeah, where I feel like, you know, there's no reason you couldn't watch 200 new movies in a year. Like this, it's possible.
Well, if you enjoyed this discussion, share the video, like and subscribe, and see you in the next live stream. And comment down your thoughts. And also, did we get Star Wars right? As always, you're awesome. Let the force be with you, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.